Okay, here is the super quick, fast lesson on using Cinema 4D to create 3D logos. All right, this is the assignment we've been working on the last 2 days of class. So the first thing that you need to do is go to the internet and find a logo that you want to make into a 3D object. I chose this Beats logo. Just right click, hit save as. You can save it as a PNG, JPEG, doesn't matter. I saved it to my desktop. Hopefully you saved it to your flash drive, okay? Remember, the more intricate of a logo that you choose, the more difficult it is going to be in both Illustrator and Cinema 4D, okay? So right now, this is a super basic logo, right? So that's the one that I chose. Remember that. All right. I saved it to the desktop. Now you're going to open up Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator. If it's the first time you open up Illustrator on on your computers, you're going to have to go through some steps. I'll help you with those. Just let me know and I'll walk you through it. Then once you're in Illustrator, you just want to find your logo. So you could go here to File Explorer or that little folder looking thing on the left hand side. Yours will look a little bit different. Whoops. So I'm going to find my logo. There it is, Beats logo. I'm going to drop it in here. Okay. You can see it's way bigger than my workspace. So I just need to zoom out and shorten it or make it smaller, rescale it a little bit. So to zoom out, I'm just going to grab the zoom tool, clicking on the magnifying glass, and then click and hold and go to the left. That will zoom out. And then I'm going to click on the selection tool, this arrow, the black arrow here. And if I hover it over a corner and hold in shift and then click on it, I'm going to hold in shift, hold in the left click on the mouse, and then I can resize it. I can make it smaller so it will fit. Okay, and then I can just drag it up here and make sure it fits. And then I can zoom back in. All right, there you go. Now, I'm going to go back to the selection tool. And with my logo selected, I'm just going to hit image trace. Now again, if you have a really complicated logo, it may not look very good when you trace this image, okay? It's more difficult for Illustrator to trace intricate, complicated logos, right? So this is super simple, so it won't be hard. I'm just going to hit image trace. Yeah, okay. And then there it is, turned it to black there, and now I'm going to hit expand. Basically, I'm just creating outlines of this shape or whatever shape you have. So hit expand. All right. Now, it's created this box as part of the logo. Yours probably has a box around it. I don't want that going into Cinema 4D. Okay, so all I have to do is hit the direct selection tool, and I can click off of the logo. And then if I hover the mouse over where the box would be, it'll show up. Just click on it and hit backspace a couple times to get rid of it. Right? All right. Now, I don't need the fill on this either. You can leave it just like it is now and bring it into Cinema 4D. You'll just have to delete a couple paths. I'm going to get rid of the fill color on this, so I'm just have the outlines left. So I'm going to click here and hit backspace 2 times, and I'm going to do the same thing with the circle. All right, and now I'm just left with these outlines, right? You can't even see them. Okay. So why don't you do this? If you've done this step, just click on the path and whoops. I want to add a stroke to it. I don't even know if that matters, but I'm going to add a stroke to it up here, up towards the left-hand corner. 0.5. I'm going to do. There we go. Now we can see it. All right. Now I have to save it, so File, Save As, and I'm going to name it Beats Logo. You can see, all right, did this. Hit Save. Here's the most important step. This box is going to come up with options. You're going to change it from an Illustrator CC file to an Illustrator 8 file. That's the only thing that Cinema 4D will recognize. So change it to Illustrator 8 and hit OK, and it's going to ask you, like, are you sure you want to do this? And you say OK. All right, that's it for Illustrator. We can close out of there, and we can go into After Effects, and then go to File, New, Cinema, or Maxon Cinema 4D file. It's the only way for us to get to Cinema 4D because we don't have a licensed copy of Cinema 4D. We have Cinema 4D comes, a light version of Cinema 4D comes with After Effects, and that's what we have. So we have to get to it through After Effects. So every time you get there, you're creating a new file. So don't ever, at this point, like if you've saved your Cinema 4D file, don't bring it in from here. Just save an untitled .c4d file, and it's saying, hey, do you want to replace this because I already have one right here, and say yes. All right, so I'm creating a new file, and it's going to open up Cinema 4D. First thing I'm going to do in Cinema 4D is change the settings. You can see these grayed out bars right here. That means we're not in HD. So I'm going to go up to my render settings, this button right here, edit render settings, and I'm going to change the width and the height from 800 by 600 to 1920 by 1080, and I'm going to lock that ratio. The other thing that I'm going to do is hit Effect and add Ambient Occlusion. It just makes the renders look better, more realistic when you render them. So I'm going to add that, and I'm going to X out. Now you can see the gray bars are gone. All right. Okay, let's bring in the logo. Here's how you do it. You click on File, Merge Objects, and find wherever you saved that Illustrator file. Mine's right here, beatslogo.ai. I'm going to bring that in. Now, make sure that Connect Splines or Group Splines is off. You don't want either of these boxes checked. So uncheck them if they're checked and hit OK. So it brought it in. I can't see it right now because it brought it in way down here. You can see this blue arrow. So a couple ways to get to it. I can move my camera around and try and find it that way, right? Or I can just click on the logo, go to coordinates, double click the X coordinate and make it 0, hit enter. Double click the Y coordinate at 0, hit enter. I've zeroed it out. Now it's in the center of the scene. I can zoom out, rotate a little bit, and center it up. Okay? It's these tools up here. I can move the camera up, down, left, right. I'm just changing my view of the scene right now. I'm not changing where this is in space. I can zoom in and out by going up and down, and I'm clicking and holding, going up to zoom in, down to zoom out, or I can click and hold on this button. It's a rotation tool, and I can rotate around the object by clicking and holding and going left and right and up and down. Okay, so I'm just changing the view with these buttons over here. These buttons over here will actually change where this object is, but you don't want to do anything with that right now. Okay, so here's my logo. It's just the outlines of the logo. It basically brings it into a folder. Now, if I open up this folder, you can see I only have 2 paths. You may have 20 paths, 30 paths, depending on how complicated of a logo you chose. Okay. What I want to do is take these paths out of this folder because I don't need this folder. So I'm just going to click and highlight both of these paths by dragging up until I am right over path 1 here, letting go. And now I have both of those selected. So I'm going to click on path 1, the word path 1, and drag down until I get this left facing arrow, and then I'll let go of the mouse button, and I've basically just taken these files out of this null object or this folder. Okay, I can delete this folder now, so I'm going to click on it, delete it. Now I'm left with these 2 paths. All right, but if I render this now, and this button will show you what your scene is going to look like when it's exported or rendered, the finished product. If I hit render view, to get a preview. It's nothing. There's nothing there because these are just paths. They're not the actual. There's no geometry to this. These are just lines, right? So we want to extrude it. We want to make it a 3D object. So to do that, you're going to click and hold on this button called Subdivision Surface. Click and hold. It'll bring up the options, and you want to drop an extrude in over here. Now what you want to do is highlight all of your paths. So I'm going to click and drag up so that my mouse is right over path 1. Let go. I've selected both of them. And now I'm going to drag it into the extrude. So click, hold, and drag it into the extrude until I get a downward facing arrow, and then let go. Okay, so now we have some geometry here, but it's only extruded the first path. It's the top path, the path that's right underneath extrude. It has not extruded path number 2. So if you had 20 paths in here, it only extruded the first path. So in order to change that, I need to click on the word extrude, go down to Object, and click Hierarchical. We want to change the hierarchy here. Right now the hierarchy is, it's saying I'm only going to extrude the most important path here, which is the first one. We want to change that so it extrudes everything. So if I click Hierarchical, now all of your paths should be extruded. Okay. Now, we still don't want these to be paths. We want them to be extrudes. You see this green box? We want 2 extrudes here, not 2 paths. So click on the word extrude to do that. Hit C, and now it's made inside these folders 2 extruded paths. Okay, so I can highlight those paths again, take them out of that folder, and I can get rid of the other folders. So there you go. You can see I have this extruded Beats logo, and if I render it out now, that's what it's going to look like right there. Okay, so now there are a couple things I can do here, but first I want to let's do this. You might have brought in a logo that needs booled out, meaning like if this B was closed, if you brought in something with letters like a B or a P or something that had a hole in it, inside of it, it's hard to explain, you're going to need to bool it out. I'll just show you. So if I go to File, New, I'll show you very quickly. Bring in something that needs booled out, like this Nike logo. I will do this as fast as I can. If you are good and you don't have anything that needs booled out, you can go on to the next step. I'm just going to do this super quick. So if I were to extrude this Nike logo, you can see that here, this little like triangle thing that divides the K and the E is filled in, right? We don't want that. It doesn't look right. So there's a simple workaround here. You're going to add a bool to the scene, whether it's something like this, or it's a P, or a B, or an O, or whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm going to click and hold to bring up the options for array, and I'm going to drop a bool in. And then you always want the thing that's being hollowed out to be first. So this is what I want to hollow this out right here. So I'm going to take path 1, drop it under the bool, and then I'm going to take the thing I'm hollowing that object out with and put it underneath path 1. So it's path 6. I'm going to drag it up here until I'm right underneath path 1 and the arrow's facing left. And then I let it go. Okay, so now I have these 2 things under the bool. So it hasn't changed anything yet because I need to make it a little bit bigger and move it around. So I'm just going to make it bigger here. I'll make it like 50 centimeters. And then I'm going to grab this blue axis and move it. If you can't grab the blue axis because of your angle, you can rotate the camera around so you can see more of that blue axis. and I'm going to click and hold and just move it. Not sure why that's not working. Oh, did the wrong thing there. Get rid of path 6. Sorry. If I drag path 2 up there and then make that bigger. There we go. Sorry. So you can see it's basically just like an invisible object here that I can pass through this. And if I just leave it right here where I can see through, I've booleed out that area. And now we can tell that it's a K and an E and not just a big block there. So now if I render that out, that's what it would look like. Okay? So there you go. All right, I'm going to go back to this project with the Beats logo. A couple things you can do now once you have your logo extruded out. This may be too thin for you. You might want it thicker. Very easy way to do that. I want both of them to be thicker. You can change each extrusion separately, but I'm going to go highlight both of them and make them thicker right here under movement. I'm going to make it like, I don't know, 85 centimeters. Now it's a little thicker. That's cool. If I want to try and make it a little cooler, I can go to the caps of an extrusion, and I can change it from regular cap to a fillet cap. And it kind of gives it that rounded over look. And I can change that, like if yours doesn't, you can increase the steps. Maybe the radius I can make smaller so that if I zoom in here, that rounded over part isn't as thick, right? I like it like that probably. And that's just doing it to the front side of this logo. Like if I go to the back, you can see it's just a straight edge. So I'm going to do it to the back too. Fillet cap. And we'll make it the same. 2 steps by 4. There you go. So now it's kind of rounded over. Looks cooler, I guess. Maybe yours doesn't look cooler like that, but whatever. All right, so there's your logo. Now, if I render this out, that's what mine looks like. Pretty bland. It's just a block of clay looking thing, right? So I want to add some color to it. Add some color to it. So to do that, just click out of that. Down here are where you're going to create your materials. So if I double click in here, it creates a new material. And I've had, I don't know, projects with like 30 different materials here. So you can always rename them. If you click here and hit enter, I'm sorry, you can just double click here. You can change the name of that. By the way, it's probably good to rename your paths if you have a whole bunch of them so you can keep things organized. I only have 2 paths, so it was kind of unnecessary. All right, so let's create this material. Here's some color to put on here. If I just double click on this new material, it's going to bring up the options, the material editor. There are a whole bunch of options here, and we can get, as the year goes on, we'll get into more of them, but right now we're just going to mess with the color of it. So if I click in this box here, double click that box, I can change it to any color I want, right? So let's make it like a, I don't know, make it like a green, and then I just click in here, I want that green, and hit OK. And we can mess around with the reflectance so that it reflects the light and it's like shiny and looks like plastic or metal or whatever. Right now I'm just going to change the color, okay? So I'm going to X out of that and drop this. Now there's 2 ways to add the color. I can just click and drag it from down here right onto the object in my scene, or if I have a whole bunch of things here and it's hard to tell which one's being selected, I can click and drag it over here until I get a downward facing arrow. I'm just going to click and drag it right here and click and drag it there. And now if I render it, There's my bright green Beats logo. Okay, and you can add more colors down here, um, depending on how many different extrudes you have and if you want to change the color. So there it is. That's how you really quickly take a logo. Whoa, take a logo from the internet, take it into Illustrator and create the outlines of it, and then bring that into Cinema 4D and turn it into some 3D geometry there. From there, you can do all sorts of things. It's called Cinema 4D because we're dealing with three different dimensions as well as time being the fourth dimension. So we can set keyframes and like spin this around at a certain time and do expand it and do all kinds of crazy things with it. But right now you're just creating a 3D logo. Um, and there's no background or anything to it. That's it. If I render that out, I know it's showing up as black, but really there is no background there. So there you go. That's quickly how you extrude a 3D logo. Let me know if you have questions and I will come around and help. All right, peace.